Gentlemen, welcome to our press conference. We understand that most of our media colleagues are covering the kickoff rally for the national campaign, and we're also blessed to have one rider party list representative Rods Gutierrez, who still uh, we're still here, no? Despite the wala ba kayong campaign, sir? Trabaho muna. Okay, before we begin the question and answer portion of our press conference, I'd like to introduce our distinguished guest for today. We have House Assistant Majority Leader and Taguig City, 2nd District Representative Maria Amparo Maria Pami J. Zamora, and one rider party list Representative Rhodes L. Gutierrez. Sir, can you give your short opening remarks?
Good morning po sa ating mga kaibigan dito sa media, and thank you for having us today. As mentioned by Sir Ryan, for a kickoff dapat today, pero trabaho po muna tayo. So I understand there would be questions addressed to us despite it being recess, and we're excited to be here po to answer any questions that our friends in the media may have. Salamat po.
Ma'am Pami?
Magandang umaga sa ating mga kaibigan sa House Media. Ngayon ang umpisa ng national campaign para sa ating mga senador at party list representatives. Pero nandito pa rin po kami para magtrabaho. We are ready to take on your questions. Magandang umaga po.
Thank you. Rosalie Cos from UNTV, you're recognized for today's first question.
Good morning po, Kongs. Para po kay Cong Rog na bahagi ng prosecution panel for the impeachment trial of VP Duterte, hingin po muna namin yung reaction niyo po sa statement ni SP Cheese yesterday na yun pong impeachment trial ay possible mag-start after the SONA of PBBM in July.
Well, I believe we have to take into consideration po no, na nagbanggit na rin po si SP Cheese Escudero yung kanyang sentiments po even prior to that statement yung tungkol sa SONA. He already mentioned before that while the impeachment court is not convened, they might be able to do preliminary processes such as, for example, yung secretariat nila maghahanda pa ng kanilang rules. They can also do their private consultations already with senators about how to go about it para kapag when in his opinion the Senate is already in session, in which, according to him po, kailangan ng plenary action. Smooth na po yung daloy. So I think yung sinabi po niya na after SONA pa po yung trial, I think it was in reference to yung trial proper po, no? Yung general idea natin kung ano po yung trial, yung paglilitis. But the whole trial per se, there are now advancements. Since the last impeachment hearing, nabanggit nga po ni Senator ni SP Escudero na they might, depending on the secretariat, depending on the rules that are proposed, they might take up. For example, I think one thing that he mentioned was yung pagtanggap ng ebidensya in pre-trial by commissioners and yung actual pre-trial proper. These are things that could be done prior po. So I don't think kasama yun sa timeline na sinasabi niya na after SONA. But all of that said, I think yun po, I think that'll be a reaction. And as always, especially as a member of the prosecution team, we would not want to comment on the propriety of that statement, and we respect and we leave it to the senator judges po on how they see fit to convene po yung impeachment court.
Hindi po ba kayo nasasayangan dun po sa ilang buwang paghihintay, I think almost 5 months, para po ma-resolve yung pong impeachment complaint? Kong Pami can also answer.
In addition po on that, yung whether or not sayang siya, it would really boil down to po yung interpretation po talaga on the timeline that should be followed. I think the SPS made his stand very clear. Although we've heard varying opinions, we've heard even experts on both sides. On one hand po, may mga nagsasabi, and this is just a statement of fact po, no? That opinion. On one side, some would say that the inclusion of the word forthwith, ang ibig sabihin po nito ay agad. So this being a power under the Constitution that isn't legislative po, no? Dapat po pwedeng gawin kahit walang plenary action. But as mentioned, nagbanggit na po si SP Escudero ang kanyang opinion, and I would assume this would be the opinion of the rest of the Senate, na it requires plenary action. Like a legislative function. So whether or not sayang po yung 5 months, I guess what they're trying to say is their hands would be tied on that interpretation. So I think yun po yung proper context for taking into the consideration pag pinag-uusapan po yung timeline.
Doon po sa prosecution panel, meron po ba kayong possible options para mas mapaaga yung impeachment trial? For example, encouraging President Marcos Jr. to call for a special session. Kasi si SP Escudero, nagbigay na po siya ng statement na unless magpatawag ng special session si PBBM, hindi po sila makakapag-conduct ng special session. Pero si PBBM made a statement unless the Senate requests him to call for a special session, hindi siya magpapatawag. So parang turuan po kasi.
Opo, to answer the question, firstly, ay hindi pa po pinag-uusapan ng prosecution team, but as a personal opinion, I don't think the prosecution team will make any moves in that manner. Hindi po kami mananawagan, only for the simple reason na ayaw po kaming ma-misinterpret as trying to unduly interfere or influence yung yet to be convened impeachment court. Kailan po maintindihan, we will be advocates po in that court. And of course, anything that we might say or do might be tainted with bias. So we'd rather it not come from us. But kagaya ng sinabi na po ni SP Escudero, nabanggit na po na siya, na he is of the opinion na pwede naman po mag-call ng special session ng presidente. Kahit ang presidente sa isang press con, sinabi niya na he may call a special session. So we leave it to them na lang po on that decision. But as far as we're concerned, that would be a call on their parts na lang po.
Well, on my end, and on our end, kahit hindi naman ako part ng prosecution team, si Speaker Martin Romualdez has already said that Congress respects and will not pressure the Senate. Although there are many legal luminaries who are advising the Senate to start right away, and while some advise otherwise, but as far as the House is concerned, we've already impeach the Vice President, and so we will really leave it to the Senate as to when they will convene to become a trial court.
Thank you, Rosalie. For today's second question, let us call on Tina Pangilinan Perez from GMA7.
For Prosec Cong Rog, will you be requiring the presence of Vice President Sara Duterte during the impeachment trial?
Again, we've yet to talk about yung specific matters such as this. Di pa po, wala pa naman pag-uusapan. Not even yung usual na, like your question last time, wala pa po akong update, wala pa pong division of work, wala pa pong ganun details. But as for the calling of the witnesses, first and foremost, hindi pa po yun yung nabanggit, no, hindi pa final. I can't say for sure if that we will call, although understandably it would be better for the it's actually the impeachment court will be able to, how do you call this, to mandate attendance naman po, no? But on the part of the prosecution team, definitely it would be better if the subject of the impeachment were there. If she were to be presented as a witness also by their defense, then we would have the opportunity also to cross-examine po, no? So sa kahit anong paglilitis po, mas maraming testigo, mas maraming ebidensya, mas maganda po. This goes both ways for the prosecution team and for the defense. Para po para lumabas po yung katotohanan. Any additional evidence or witness would be welcome po.
Sir, how much of the evidence is with the prosecution team already?
Without saying too much po, I think we have enough evidence. We have what we would say, I think it's more than enough, especially considering na, in our opinion, of course, depende pa rin po yun. Ang impeachment case po ay not strictly criminal. It's sui generis, we've always mentioned this, it's more akin to an administrative matter po, no? Kasi the penalty, it's not punitive, wala pong makukulong, wala pong fines and penalties na that would be implemented. Ang impeachment case lang po ang mayayari dito ay one, removal from office, and second, perpetual disqualification from public office. So hindi po siya strictly criminal. So yung strictest requirements of evidence that would apply to criminal case might not apply here. Depends, of course, on the impeachment court kung ano pong madesisyonan nila. At the end of the day, it would be a political exercise on the part of the senator judges and how they would vote. So, as far as we're concerned, I think we have enough evidence to at least convince our senator judges of why they should side with the prosecution on this part. But with that said, there would still be more avenues for additional evidence, definitely po. Especially kapag meron pong impeachment cases. There are some laws which actually have for their exemption impeachment cases for the request of more evidence. The power of subpoena, nandyan rin po yan sa impeachment court. So I'm pretty sure that the prosecution team will be open to all of these additional avenues to secure even more evidence po.
Sir, does that include yung ni-raise po ni Representative Cong na 12.3 billion peso unsettled financial transactions in DepEd during the tenure of the Vice President? Because he is calling on the House to investigate the issue. Therefore, wala pa yung ebidensya on this. So will that be included?
Well, if we take a look po preliminarily on the articles ng ating impeachment, nandun na po yung mga grounds natin, and one of it would be yung graft and corruption. This would really depend po on the appreciation of the evidence. Although it is alarming that there would be ano po yung amount po natin, Ma'am Tina? 12 billion po ba?
12.3 B, sir.
12.3 billion, and this would be disallowances po ba?
Unsettled financial
Unsettled
transactions,
financial.
sir.
So if it would be taken in consideration, kasi it's possible naman po, as what happens with COA, na may mga findings ang COA that are just in the regular course of business. But if it would be found to be in line with yung mga allegations po natin sa impeachment complaint, then I don't think the prosecution team would have any hindi po they will not shy away from making use of such evidence po siguro.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Tina. Bibian Gulia from ABS-CBN.
In connection with Ate Tina's question, are you also joining the call for the Good Government Committee to investigate the said transaction?
Unfortunately, as with many things po, as a member now of the prosecution team, I think I would have to exercise more restraint than other members of the House. I will not join the call, although we will anticipate eagerly any developments there. Kasi po sa amin, because we already have filed the complaint, the House has already filed the complaint, and we are now anticipating the convening of the impeachment court. That would now be the proper venue for us to thresh out these issues. If the prosecution team feels na kulang pa po yung evidence or that they would like to seek additional evidence, the proper venue would also be through the impeachment court. Although nothing precludes po the House from conducting inquiries in aid of legislation as part of its legislative functions, and nothing would preclude other members of the House po to answer this call po ng kapwa congressman po namin.
On whether we plan to bring this up sa Good Government Committee, yes, ma'am. In fact, napag-usapan na namin yan ng ibang members dahil sa proposal ni Congressman Cong, balak po talaga yung talakayin sa Committee on Good Government.
Also, Kong Rog, you mentioned that you have more than enough evidence for the prosecution of on the impeachment trial of the Vice President. Why is there a need to request for the subpoena of the bank records?
Well, you don't stop po just because you know that you have enough evidence. No? For as much as possible, you would like to establish, even if you have a strong case, any prosecutor would like to have an even stronger case. Kung ang sa criminal court nga po naghahanda ang prosecutor for guilt evidence that would prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt, I think we should still have the diligence po as a prosecution team to prepare for such quantum of evidence. So this means po na talagang we have to really establish our case while the Senate impeachment court might settle for a lower standard of evidence, it still would never hurt your case to become prepared with even more evidence. And talagang aside from that, aside from just the objective of yung impeachment court, this is also a venue po, no, para malaman na po yung katotohanan, kasi that has been a constant call po even in the House. Yung sa budget hearings po natin na hindi po nag-attend, hindi po tayo nalinawan kung ano ba talaga ang nangyayari noon nung mga committee hearings po natin sa good governance, committee hearings sa Quad in cases na hindi po malinaw, no, yung ano ba talaga yung nangyari. So the impeachment court now, aside from a venue for redress in relation to these offenses, it is also a venue for the truth to finally be revealed po. So this is something that we like to stick to po siguro.
I think that's in relation to Article 4 po ba? Yung sa disclosure ng assets and properties sa SALN. But even without it, for example, if hindi i-grant yung subpoena, will the current evidence on that particular article stand?
We believe so. Actually, a lot of the push and pull in the complaint would be which articles to include, and by its inclusion and by its approval by not just 1/3 of the House but by 80% po, no, right now, I think that speaks volumes of the confidence that the House has in the evidence that would back these articles po.
Also, you mentioned earlier na may comments kayo, no, dun sa schedule ng impeachment trial. Are you saying na justified yung schedule ng impeachment trial to begin ng July after SONA?
I would not say justified po. I'm just saying as a reaction po, no, sabi ni Ma'am Rose, as a reaction given the context of which SP Escudero has made his remarks, given the context na alam na po natin kung which interpretation the SP has adopted, given the context of yung daloy po ng proceedings sa Senate according to none other than the Senate President. I believe then that is the practical consequence. Yung timeline na yan would be the practical consequence. But as to the justification, we leave it up to them, we leave it up to the people to see if it is justified. As mentioned, we will not make any calls for the Senate to rush this, so that we would want to avoid any tainting of partiality, tainting of bias. But with that said, as mentioned, there are legal luminaries, and sabi nga, nabanggit na po ni Cong Pami, that are of the opinion that they are of the opinion of a different interpretation po, no? Habang si SP Escudero ay nandun sa panig na ang interpretasyon dapat dito ay still within the bounds of Senate's legislative calendar, within the bounds of plenary action. Meron naman pong interpretasyon na kapag sinasabi ng saligang batas na the trial shall proceed forthwith, ibig sabihin agad-agad. And given na meron rin na interpretasyon na hindi ito legislative function kundi constituent power, ito ay mandato at authority within the Constitution itself that they can implement independent of legislative functions. Then there is also that yun na po yung interpretasyon na it should follow a faster timeline. So with the justification, it would depend kung alin ang interpretation po natin. Pero yun lang po, I was just commenting on the context of which the statements were made.
Having said that, kung July pa po yun, 20th Congress na po, is there still point for the members of the 19th Congress, prosecution panel under the 19th Congress to prepare for the impeachment trial?
Well, gaya ng sinabi pa namin before, ready or not, dapat, here or not, dapat mag-ready na po kami. Whether it would be as early as March or whether it would be in the next Congress, the prosecution team will do its job, having been elected by the members of Congress in its constitutional duty to pursue this impeachment case. it would not be, hindi naman po siya sayang if ever, for whatever reason na halimbawa it crosses the 20th Congress and there would be a new set of prosecutors. We would be glad po na at least we've done our part. Naka-ready na po yung ating articles of impeachment, naka-ready na po yung evidence, naka-ready na rin po yung mga witnesses that we would like to call, and we would happily pass it on po to the next batch if for whatever reason po.